After studying this module, you shall be able to know about the concept of organizational culture, identify the common characteristics of organizational culture, learn about the functions of organizational culture, evaluate the relationship between organizational culture and ethics, comprehend the role of workplace spirituality in organizational culture.
Organizational culture is the set of shared values, beliefs, symbols, behavior and norms that influence the way employees think, feel and behave in the workplace and guide them to decide and act at the unconscious level. The common attributes identified by scholars and researchers of organizational culture are that culture is closely knit with the concept of shared meaning, that organizational culture is built upon the social fabric impacted upon by the environment, and the organizational culture is pervasive and dwells at all the levels in the organization. Organizational culture can be stated as a descriptive term which describes how an employee rates his organization, whether the organization offers work-friendly environment or does it encourage teamwork or does it encourage initiatives, etc. The organizational culture is a universal phenomena. However, whether it is uniform all across needs to be deliberated upon. The organization may follow a universal culture throughout the organization. However, subcultures which are formed to discuss common problems, experiences, etc. of a common group of employees cannot be ruled out. The core values of an organization are reflected in the dominant structure of an organization. Deal and Kennedy are the pioneers of organizational culture, which can be seen from a national cultural point of view. Organization culture from this perspective can be said to be central to the organization's success rather than giving importance to structure, strategy and politics. Martins define organizational culture as a system of shared meaning held by members, distinguishing the organization from other organizations. Arnold designates that organizational culture is the distinctive norms, beliefs, principles and ways of behaving that combine to give each organization its distinct character. Studies have also equated what personality is to an individual is the same as a culture is for an organization. Skene defines culture as a pattern of shared basic assumptions learned by a group as it solved its problems of external adaptation and internal integration, which has worked well enough to be considered valid and therefore to be taught to new members as the correct way to perceive, think and feel in relation to those problems. Brown defines organizational culture as the pattern of beliefs, values and learned ways of coping with experience that have developed during the course of an organization's history and which tend to be manifested in its material arrangements and in the behaviors of its members.
To start with this module, we shall first understand the basic meaning of organizational culture. Organizational culture is the set of values, beliefs, behavior and norms that influence the way employees think, feel and behave in the workplace and guide them to decide and act at the unconscious level. The concept of organizational culture is a universal phenomena.
Let us now discuss the components or elements of organizational culture. These are vision. The employees of the organization envisions to take the organization to a place of eminence in future. Even already established companies never lose sight of their vision. The vision is a desired state particular to the organization and every entity in the organization works in order to achieve the aforesaid vision. Vision forms an essential part of the culture of an organization. Next, Core values. Core values are those guidelines which are essential and have a typical organizational fervor. These guidelines, when developed, are communicated and consistently followed. Therefore, core values become an essential part of the organizational culture and are employed as everyday guide for effective decision making. Core values are enshrined in the constitution or the philosophy of the organization and are consistently involved in the goals and views of organizations. Next, practices. The organizational practices, that is, the activities carried out by the organizations in a religious manner. Whatever the organization practice in reality determines what it needs to achieve. Therefore, practices are always in tune with the organization's vision and cultures and form an essential component of the overall culture of the organization. Next, people. The most important resource of any organization is its human resource. Similarly, to be consistent in following an organizational culture, it is imperative to have those people who can easily fit into the culture of the organization. Employees also play a major role in building, imbibing and sustaining the culture of an organization. Next, narrative. The legends, stories, heritage, myths, etc. are the narratives for an organization. The organizational culture depicts the way of life in an organization. Narratives therefore talk about the organizational history and emphasize on the organizational values. Next, communication and climate. This point specifies the environment prevailing in the organization. This determines whether the organization is safe to be or has a threatening environment. The organization through its element naturally conveys and communicates about its own essence. Employees do ask whether they feel safe, whether or not they are protected and appreciated and so on. This component also specifies that what is the experience of the employees when they communicate. Are they fearful or free-going? When the employees are restricted to convey a particular type of information, they feel bounded, which may result in organization losing valuable information. Next, place. The place in which the organization also forms a major component of an organizational culture. A particular place may be known for a certain thing. For example, the Silicon Valley. Geography, architecture and design have a great impact on the values and behaviors of the people in the organization.
Different types of organizational cultures share some common features. We shall now discuss such features that are present in all types of organizational cultures. Innovation and risk taking. I for details. Outcome orientation. People orientation. Team orientation. Aggressiveness. Stability. Let us discuss the features one by one. Innovation and risk taking. Innovation is the key to success for any organization. Today, an innovative culture, advocacy, and encouragement is kept in perspective. I for details. Precision in work, analysis of the subject, and attention to details is assessed to gauge the culture of any organization. Outcome orientation. This orientation comes from the organization looking results and outcomes rather than just focusing on the means and techniques to achieve an outcome. People orientation. The extent to which the top level management cares about the people and is concerned about their well being. Team orientation. This stems from the management practice of encouraging employees to work in teams across all the spheres in the organization. Aggressiveness. This implies that organization does not encourage easygoing people who do not care for the work at hand. Stability. This explains the extent to which an organization is looking for changes in terms of growth, or is it seeking stability in terms of maintaining the status quo.
The 7 characteristics mentioned and discussed earlier give an understanding of the culture being followed in the organization. Each of the aforementioned characteristics are coded from high to low in a continuum. Each employee is made to enlist his her choice, and subsequently their scores are analyzed to know the composite picture of the organization culture. This analysis becomes the basis of understanding between members related to the organization. This gives a fair amount of understanding to the employees as to how their organization actually works, how things and works are catered to, and most importantly, what is the norm of the workplace and how should they conduct themselves in the organization. For instance, there may be organizations which are more focused on maintaining their status quo instead of making a breakthrough radical innovation. Those organizations may not be risk takers and therefore do not advise their employees to take risk either. This culture may have stemmed up from the unnecessary accountability of work, which criticizes and penalizes for the failed projects. There may be organizations who would look closely and analyze the work of its employees and take corrective actions in case any deviation is found thereof. Contrary to this, there may be organizations which are proactive and they take pride in introducing new technologies. They also reward their employees for bringing new technological advancements and radical innovations. All the failures are treated as learning experiments and no penalization is done for the same. Edgar Skene brings the relationship between learning, culture and dialogue in the context of changes which occur in organizations. Supervision is loose and only a fixed target needs to be met without being closely looked after. This company is proud of its work culture and is having a reputation of a good place to work.
Organizational culture is important to every organization. Having understood the basic concept of organizational culture, we shall now study about its functions. Boundary defining. The culture of an organization creates a boundary between organizations and distinguishes between plethora of organizations working in the industrial diaspora. Conflict resolution. It is very helpful in resolution of conflicts and disagreements within the organizational setup. Coordination and control. It has been studied that the organizations having a good culture tend to promote consistency of outlook and policies. Uncertainty reduction. Organizations adopting cultural mind frame with proper channelization provide a clear task structure which simplifies the work role and work processes. Creates a sense of identity. In a good culture, the employee starts to identify himself with the organization and feels pride in the same. Facilitates generation of commitment. In organizations having a good cultural disposition, employees act commit to things larger than their own self. Motivates employees. Performance can be achieved where the employees are regularly motivated. Enhances stability. Culture acts as an adhesive which joins the varied social fabric of an organization. Works as a control mechanism. Culture can be referred as a control mechanism as it provides the requisite guidance to employees to nurture their talent. Competitive advantage. A strong culture is the appropriate guide. It creates brand for the organization amongst the stakeholders.
These functions clearly establish that the organizations cannot work without having an organizational culture. The role of culture spans from influencing employee behavior to guiding employees in accomplishment of organizational goals. This explains why Google as an organization is so informal and easy to work. It provides a work environment which is having a strong commitment to technical excellence and in the same time offer its employees informal settings to discuss the work and non-work aspects in a couch in the workplace. Similarly, employees at the Disney theme parks have a strong inclination to be clean, attractive and presentable, and that is the image which the management of Disney wants to have.
Up next are the factors that help an organization to develop and embrace a culture and thereafter sustain it. Firstly, the founder chooses upon those sets of people who are ready to embrace the way of working as envisaged by the founder. Secondly, the new employees are trained and developed to embrace a particular way of thinking as advocated by the founders. Thirdly, founders are the role models for any organization. Their thought process, value orientation, beliefs, and assumptions are followed in the organization. Thereafter, if the organization succeeds, it is assumed that the founder members are visionary and their attributes are regarded as the determinant of success for the organization. Gradually, these attributes of the founder members become entrenched in the culture of the organization.
An organization culture to develop is a time-taking phenomenon. However, once it is established in an organization, it sustains itself for a long period of time. In this section, we are going to emphasize on the specific aspects which help an organization to develop and embrace a culture and thereafter sustain it. Organizational culture is a shared belief and a general way of doing things in the organization. This shared belief has stemmed from numerous people practicing those beliefs and achieving success at that. When we try to analyze the origin of the culture of an organization, it points towards the four founders of the organization. The system, values, beliefs, endeavors and ideologies that the founders of the organization prune in the edifices of the organization have a major contribution on the organization's early culture. With the test of time, these attributes remain or shed away. The whole process involves a three-step formulation. Firstly, the founder chooses upon those sets of people who are ready to embrace the way of working as envisaged by the founder. Secondly, the new employees are trained and developed to embrace a particular way of thinking as advocated by the founders. Thirdly, founders are the role models for any organization. Their thought process, value orientation, beliefs and assumptions are followed in the organization. Thereafter, if the organization succeeds, it is assumed that the founder members are visionary and their attributes are regarded as the determinant of success for the organization. Gradually, these attributes of the founder members become entrenched in the culture of the organization. Culture creation is also hugely impacted by the success stories. The success itself becomes the desired outcome and the means of attaining that success becomes the success mantra. This mantra slowly embedded in the system which employees follow. The whole culture creation process is not a one-day event. It takes time to be formulated. Once formulated, it becomes the way of life. Some of the edifices of the organization culture may be taught to the new incumbents. However, most of them need to be learned by noticing, observing and assimilating. Most of the organization cultures today resemble the attributes of their four founders. For instance, IKEA has a culture of thrift and innovation with uncomplicated, no-nonsense approach which the organization has imbibed from its founder Ignar Kamprad. He was born in Sameland region of Sweden. IKEA's culture and value are built around the Sameland legacy. Similarly, other organizations have largely built their culture based upon their founder leaders such as Bill Gates at Microsoft, Richard Branson at Virgin Group. Creating a culture is an important aspect. However, sustaining, reviving and augmenting it at requisite periods draws significance too. An organizational culture and thrive and consequently survive when there are practices aimed to maintaining culture by providing the employees a similar sort of an experience. The process of selection of employees, subsequent training and development promotion criteria should be taken up in the direction of providing a flow to the organizational culture already present in the organization. Those employees selected in the organization should fit in the organization. Those employees who are not fit enough should be trained accordingly. Those employees who support the culture and advocate about it should be suitably rewarded, and those who are against the culture or do not follow the same should be penalized.
There are certain factors which help the organization sustain its culture over the long run. We shall now study them one by one. The first is selection. The prime motive of any selection process is to choose among a suitable bunch of people the most appropriate and meritorious employees. The next is the role of the top level management. The top level management's actions, words, orders, directives, and narratives explain and set trends in the organization. Middle and lower level employees take the top level management's action as the official norms of the organization. And lastly, socialization. It is the process of adapting to a new climate and culture is termed as socialization. An appropriate selection process may not be enough to align the new employees in the organization. We are not thorough with the creation and maintenance of organizational culture. Up next is the concept of spirituality and organizational culture. Workplace spirituality is quite different from religious practices or theology. Workplace can be used as a source of community to make the employees understand their purpose in the work they are catering to.
Whenever there is a mention of spirituality in organization behavior, the basic purpose is to draw attention towards the workplace spirituality. Workplace spirituality is quite different from religious practices or theology. Now, the next bone of contention which should be dealt here is that workplace spirituality has never been a topic to be discussed in organization behavior. So, how is the interest on a novel concept and help further the organizational behavior and research thereof? The answers to these questions are that organizations are reeling under the imminent problems of attrition, and the answer which seems to help here is the better understanding of employee behavior. Understanding a person's behavior can only be successful if the focus is given on the emotional aspect of a person. Therefore, the study of workplace spirituality comes into focus. Researchers have shown that a rational mindset eliminates the requirement of emotions. However, more recently it has been emphasized that employees' inner life need to be understood to predict behavior. Workplace setting and more importantly imbibed in an organization's culture can help employees develop and realize their full potentials. How can workplace spirituality be imbibed in the organizational setting? The answer is not very straightforward as researches are being conducted on this, but we can draw on some studies which advocate the alignment of workplace spirituality in the organizational culture. An organization focusing on spirituality also focuses on meaningful. There is A strong sense of purpose for every work taken. Meaningfulness in the organization is achieved when individual employees know the purpose of their work and consider it worthwhile. Workplace can be used as a source of community to make the employees understand their purpose in the work they are catering to. Learning and growth occurs when the organizations stop considering people as just the means to achieve an end. A culture creation in which there is recognition of the worth of an employee can lead to commitment in employees and hence intention to stay put in the organization.
Ethics are an important part of any business. We will now study the effect of ethics and culture on an organization. A sound organizational culture may influence the ethical practices of an organization and will influence the employees in a better way than otherwise. The norms set act as prescriptions for correct and moral behavior. Organizations can communicate ethical expectations and make it stand clear on ethical ambiguities with the employees. Organizations can also impart training to its employees by conducting seminars, workshops, conferences to reinforce the organization's standard of ethical conduct. Employees adhering to the ethical conduct are rewarded. Lastly, we will study about the impact of culture on employee performance and satisfaction. There is a linkage between the organizational culture and employee performance. Organization culture can make employees better off by involvement through effective training, consistency through good coordination and integration with the organization, and adaptability in case of changing environments. Different organizations require different work roles and even different mindset. Therefore, proper communication of demands and desires in the form of socialization and communication can improve the employee performance and the level of satisfaction.
There is a linkage between the organizational culture and employee performance. Candula also advocates that the key to good performance is a strong culture. Organization culture can make employees better off by involvement through effective training, consistency through good coordination and integration with the organization, and adaptability in case of changing environments. In this module, we have seen that selection of the employees stands out to be the most important aspect of maintaining the organization culture as well as sustaining the employees. If the new recruit does not align with the organization culture, then a whole problem of management mismatch will occur. This will need to be fixed. So, the first step of selection needs to be taken in harmony with the culture of the organization. Non-alignment can lead to problems like lower satisfaction, lower motivation and therefore high turnover. Socialization of employees can improve the performance of the employees. It becomes clear for the employee if she is aware of she is required to do in the organization. Socialization can be achieved by proper training, and if the employee is totally aware of his work role, then it showcases the high level of socialization of the organization. Organizations would also do well to evaluate employee performance on the parameters of right fit in the organization. Different organizations require different work roles and even different mindset. Some organizations will want their employee to be aggressive and ambitious. Some organizations will want their employee to be benevolent. Therefore, proper communication of demands and desires in the form of socialization and communication can improve the employee performance and the level of satisfaction.
Let us now recapitulate what we have studied in this module. Organizational culture is the set of shared values, beliefs, symbols, behavior, and norms that influence the way employees think, feel, and behave in the workplace. Common characteristics of culture are innovation and risk taking, I for details, outcome orientation, people orientation, team orientation, aggressiveness, etc. Functions of organizational culture are boundary defining role, conflict resolution, coordination and control, uncertainty reduction, creates a sense of identity, facilitates generation of commitment, motivates employees, etc. Organizational culture can make employees better off.